we have the spokesperson for the Saudi embassy in D.C., for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Fahad Nazer joins us here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. Sir, welcome back to the program, and thanks for sticking with us through these technical issues.
No worries, Jimmy. Thank you so much for having me on again.
When we spoke a couple of months ago on this program, one of the things that we discussed was the unilateral or the ceasefire in Yemen on the part of Saudi Arabia and the government there. However, there have been reports that violence has still continued, that the ceasefire has not really taken shape in full form. Can you tell us about the status of that?
Right, so we are still abiding by the ceasefire. Again, we instituted it to give the United Nations Special Envoy for Yemen a chance to succeed as he's moving forward and trying to get the various parties to the conflict back to the negotiating table. Unfortunately, the Houthis, this Iranian-backed militant militia, has violated the agreement and the ceasefire on multiple occasions. Just last night, it sent 8 drones and 3 ballistic missiles towards Saudi Arabia. Thankfully, they were all intercepted, but it really kind of underscores just their callous disregard for civilian life and civilian infrastructure. They targeted mostly civilian targets in the kingdom. Of course, that is not a surprise because they have targeted civilians and civilian infrastructures in Yemen throughout the past 5 years. They have recruited child soldiers. They have put mines, over 1 million mines all across Yemen. So they have, like I said, shown complete disregard for the safety and well-being of Yemeni people, and they're trying to do the same thing and endanger our own people in Saudi Arabia, and we will not let that stand.
Again, we're talking with Fahad Nazer, who is the spokesperson for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the embassy in Washington, D.C. In terms of Yemen, I mean, the United States, we talked about this a little bit last time, the United States has been supportive of Saudi Arabia's support of the Yemeni government there, particularly because the Houthi rebels are backed by the Iranian regime, and that is absolutely a common enemy, common threat that the United States shares with the vast majority of the region, in fact. But there are a lot of Americans who have seen politicians in Washington, D.C., who have spoken out against the United States' support of what you guys are doing in Yemen, to the extent that we have provided aid and military support and what have you. And so I would love you to explain, please, why you think it is so important that the United States actually is involved in providing some aid, and that it doesn't, as Congress, many in Congress have tried to do, that it doesn't get cut off.
Right. So as I said at the outset, Saudi Arabia didn't start this war. We never wanted it. It was a war of necessity, not a war of choice. When we did intervene, we made sure that we do have the backing of the international community. In fact, there is a United Nations Security Council Resolution 2216 that was passed almost unanimously supporting our effort there. Yemen is an important country. We wanted to, it's right along our border, obviously. We wanted to make sure that it does not fall prey and fall victim to not just one, but potentially 3 militant, violent terrorist groups in the form of ISIS, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, and also this militant organization, this militant militia backed by Iran, known as the Houthis. So the prospect of an important country, it has a very strategic location right along the Red Sea. The prospect of that becoming a failed state or a safe haven for, again, not one, but 3 militant, violent organizations, or rather I shouldn't say organizations, but militias and terrorist organizations, all 3 of which, by the way, have crossed into Saudi Arabia and attacked us in the past, was simply not a scenario that we were willing to accept. So we are doing everything we can to restore peace and stability and prosperity in Yemen. And I think there are a lot of people, a lot of members of Congress who have come, I think, full circle towards realizing that the Houthis are a very menacing force. They're not a force for good, that they are endangering not just the lives of people in Yemen. They're trying to endanger, obviously, Saudi Arabia's security, but they have also launched missiles at American naval forces and ships in the past. So they're not to be taken lightly. And again, because of the fact that they are backed by Yemen, we absolutely need to send a very clear message to Yemen that you are not going to do what you've done in Lebanon by creating this militant Hezbollah group there. You're not going to do the same thing in Yemen. That is simply not in the cards.
But so the crux of the matter, though, is that the Houthis are backed by Iran, and that's centrally important here because it is not only a threat to the region, Iran, but to the world, and to such a point too in the region where we have at least seen conversations among some different powers in the Middle East who have not been necessarily as communicative in the past, specifically because it seems that there is this recognition about how significant Iran is as a threat in terms of not just its nuclear potential, but also because of the fact that it is trying to destabilize various parts of the Middle East and the globe with its incursions.
Absolutely. I mean, Iran has this terrible track record going back to 1979 of trying to violate every norm and convention of the international community. They continue to support various non-state actors, militant actors. They began doing it in Lebanon. They continue to do it in Iraq. They're trying to do it in Yemen. This is obviously in addition to the fact that they are the primary sponsor of terrorist groups and organizations around the world. Their terrorist groups and proxies have conducted attacks, not just in the region, but they've done it in Europe, in the heart of Europe. They even tried to do it here in the United States when they tried to assassinate our former ambassador right here in Washington, D.C. So they have no limits. They simply they're an egregious violator of the norms and the laws of the international community. And the United States and Saudi Arabia are fully aligned in pushing back against Iran's malign behavior in the region. We are fully supportive of the maximum pressure policy of the United States because we think that, for lack of a better analogy, but the carrots, the carrots and sticks analogy, carrots do not work with Iran. They only respond to sticks, unfortunately.
And I just want to underscore, from my perspective, that in terms of American support of this, shall we say, proxy war in Yemen, it is all about Iran. That is the threat that we are facing that is common and that is significant. And one of the things that I think the Trump administration has recognized in the past few years, and I'd appreciate it if you would speak to this, is that Iran is such a threat to the point where they withdrew from the Iranian nuclear deal, which was fundamentally flawed on every level, but also have been working very hard, I think, to repair some of the weakened relationships that many of the Middle Eastern powers have had with the United States under former President Barack Obama, who seemed to really be trying to soften up more and more with Iran, hence the Iranian nuclear deal. And so I think we have a fundamental shift in view of the region and what needs to be done, particularly vis-a-vis the threat of Iran under the Trump administration compared with the previous administration, and that is central as well to the Middle Eastern policy of the United States and our relationship with a country like Saudi Arabia.
Right. So there's no doubt that the Trump administration appreciates the productive and constructive role that Saudi Arabia plays, not just in the Arab world, but across the broader Muslim majority world. We work with the United States on many different fronts. Like I said, Iran countering and pushing back against Iran's malign influence and behavior is just one front to it. We also work very closely on the counterterrorism front in terms of hitting and countering and containing terrorist groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda. We have done that for well over almost 2 decades at this point. And in fact, our cooperation on the counterterrorism front has saved the lives of thousands of people in Saudi Arabia, in the United States, and elsewhere. We're also cooperating on trying to resolve unfortunately, the many crises and conflicts in the region, whether it's Yemen, Libya, Syria, or other conflicts. Who are also, I think, largely aligned when it comes to trying to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So we have a lot in common. We work on many different fronts, and I think our cooperation has been and will be the key to peace and stability in the region.